Okay, we saw machloikis that exactly you need 2, 2, 3, 5. How many dayanim do you need? We said that it was a case of Maisa Beino Leveino, that even 1 and 1. And there's a Maisa in prison where they went ahead and they came to Rabbi Akiva about it. So let's get a little clarity about that Maisa. And we're on Kuf Hey Amid Beis. We're about 5 lines from the bottom. Maisa Shacholzu Beino Leveino Miyadina. Now, if it was between them, who would know? As we know, anything for something to have validity, you need to make sure that there's Eidim there. So l'chayra, if Pashtus, they were in prison, he gave a chalitza, there was no one there, so how do you know about it? So and Eidim were outside, and they saw as he gave her chalitza. Now you boil who? Ma'isa shecholzu beino leveino abroi. They were outside. Uba ma'isa akiva beis hasurim. In other words, they weren't in prison, even though the Mishnah seems to say they were in prison, but it was Rabbi Akiva who was in prison, but the Maisa took place outside. Or maybe it took place when they were in prison. Rabbi Akiva Pashtus was outside. So Rabbi Yehuda Amarav, Bebeis Asurim Haya, Maisa, Bebeis Asurim Ba Maisa. In fact, they both were in prison. They were in prison, Rabbi Akiva was in prison, so again, this is a very funny story. So the Yerushalmi sheds light upon this. The Taisus quotes the Yerushalmi. Let's see Taisus. 3 lines from the bottom. How could you push it that the Maisa took place? Rabbi Akiva's Beis Asurim, not outside. How would you know such a thing? They know, the Gemara knows that the incident came in front of Rabbi Akiva in Beis Asurim. That was Pashit. If you'd say Rabbi Akiva was outside, why would you say he's in prison? So we're saying because the Gemara said they knew. The Gemara knew. Now, how they know? Very often the Yerushalmi fills you in on what transpired. The Yerushalmi fills us in. Rabbi Yochanan Asandla over Kumei Chavushin, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yochanan Asandla was passing by the Kumei Chavushin, the place where he was chavush, the place where he was being held of Rabbi Akiva. So then in the cell, he passed by the cell of Rabbi Akiva, and Hoya Machriz. And Rabbi Yochanan Sandler was calling out for Omar, Man boy machtin, uma boyin sinorin, who needs needles, who needs thimbles, and along the way, he did, as a salesman, he threw in, oh, by the way, what's the halacha? If you give chalitza? In other words, obviously it was dangerous. You couldn't just go to Rabbi Akiva and ask him what the story is. So he made himself like a peddler. And he took the peddler, he threw in, oh, by the way, what's the halacha if the chalitza transpires beino lebeino? So Adikle Reisha bin Kvavse, Rabbi Akiva, he stuck his head out of the window, I think it means. So Amalei, Islacha Kushin, Islacha Kasha. No, it's Kasha. He asked him, do you have Kushin, which must be some type of object, but he illuminated to that it's Kasha. So in other words, they were spoken in code. They spoke in code, and that's how Yerushalmi fills in that the Maisa took place in prison, and it took place in Rabbi Akiva was in prison. Very geshmak Yerushalmi to go ahead and explain a very cryptic Maisa. Tanrabanan chalitza mutois kshera. Chalitza of mistake is kasha. Ezehi chalitza mutois. What's considered a chalitza of mistake? Reish Lakish says Reish Lakish kol sha'oimim loy. Anytime you say to him, chalitz ubekachat koinsa. In other words, the guy's in Amoritz, and you say to him, oh, you want to marry her? You want to marry her? Do chalitza. So that's a what? That's a chalitza b'tois, and it's good chalitza. Amli Rav Yochanan, ani shaina. I learned. We saw this earlier, guys. Ben sheneskaven hu, whether he had kavan of chalitza, v'lo neskaven he, and she did not. Ben sheneskaven he, she had kavana v'lo neskaven hu. Chalitza sabsula actually is kavnu shneim ke'echad. Yat amin chalitza k'sheira. The guy thinks he's marrying her, right? He's not mechaven for chalitza. You say do the chalitza and that's yibum. That doesn't work. Rabbi Yochanan says you need both kavana for both to work. So how in the world can this be pshat in chalitza? We know chalitza mutois is k'sheira. How could this be the uptight guys of a chalitza mutois? In other words, that's the given. A chalitza, a mistake is what is kosher. It's a good chalitza. We're just trying to go ahead and identify what exactly is a chalitza mutois. It can't be what you're discussing that you tell him get married. Why? Because that would not work. Ella, you want to know what chalitza mutois is? Kol sha'imim loy chalitza, give a chalitza al menashe titin l'chom etayim zuz. In other words, you're mechaven for the chalitza with the tanai. What's the tanai? That she's going to give you 200 zuz. So you had kavan. You trick him into giving the chalitza because in the end you're not going to give the metayim zuz, and that's the trick. But he is mechaven for the chalitza, guys. Here's the difference. In the first case, he wasn't mechaven for the chalitza at all. He's mechaven because he thought the chalitza is going to go ahead and affect the yibum. But over here, you trick him. No, give the chalitza. What's the trick? That what the tanai says Rashi, an important Rashi, guys. Now, where do you learn tanai, guys? From you know where you learn tanai from? Where's the source in the Torah for tanai? Is Bnei Gad or Bnei Ruvain. Bnei Gad and Bnei Ruvain is the source for all Tanoim, all conditions. That they wanted to settle in Evar Yarden and not go into Eretz Yisrael. They said, "How you talking? They're going to go fight against kings and place themselves in danger." You go, you make a Tanai. If you go in front of them, right, and then you go, then yeah. If not good. Now, so what does he say? Even though if you don't give the money, even if it says Rashi, you don't give the money. The whole Tanai mibnei Gad mibnei Ruvain gaminon Tana. So now Tana she'efsha lasois. Change the word. Lasois al yidei shliach. She'asa Moshe es Yeshua shliach lasois lemes eretz gilad. Havi Tanai. The whole Tanai deloi efsha lasois al yidei shliach going chalitza ain't Tanai moil. The zehu time shel dava. That's the reason for the matter. Okay, guys, outside. What was the Tanai that if you go and fight in Eretz Yisrael, you'll get Evar Yarden? Who's going to give this to them? Moshe never went into Eretz Yisrael. So Yeshua was a shliach to do it. So one of the conditions necessary for, excuse the pun, for a condition is that it's not shliach. A chalitza cannot be al yidei shliach. So what do we say? Kol Tanai, that's not she'ein Tanai b'nei Goren, is Tanai bottle. Umaisa kayim, guys. Here's the good. It's not pshat that the Tanai is bottle and there's no maisa. Tanai bottle, umaisa kayim. So what's the maisa over here? Chalitza. The Tanai is bottle because we are shliach. Therefore, that's chalitza mutois. The chalitza mutois, the chalitza that you're going ahead and tricking him is that what that is that he thinks he's going to get 200. He's not going to get the 200 sus. Okay, we're on Kufa Vaman Aleph, Lenny. Kufa Vaman Aleph. We're about a quarter of the way down. And we're explaining a chalitza that was given al yedei mistake is a good chalitza, and it's speaking where the guy was tricked into giving chalitza on condition that is going to get what 200 sus, 200 money. Tanyanam Yehachi, about 8 lines down, 10 lines down. Chalitza mutois kshera, a chalitza mutois, the chalitza that what you go ahead and make a mistake is what is kshera. Ezu chalitza mutois, and what exactly is a chalitza mutois? That you trick the person. Kol sha'oimnim cholis al menashe titn chamatayim zuz u'maisa be'isha achash shenafel lev yavam shein hagen la fell in front of a yavam that was not proper for. Guys, we spoke at earlier, right? For dibru, you speak, you give advice. Let's say he's old, you're young, vice versa. You know, you give advice. You know, why do you need such an old person? You can end up fighting, right? So in other words, you've ended up in a condition where it wasn't an optimum condition for chalitza. And what of Amuloi, they told him chalitza menashe titn chamatayim zuz u'ba'maisa leRabbi v'echsheira. And they said, right, it was kasha. Okay, very good. We have a nice pshat. Now the Gemara brings a few mices. Ahuda asla kamei de Rabbi Barabba. There was a Yevamot that came from in front of Rabbi Barabba. Amalah, biti amudi. Says, go ahead, stand up and be misyabim to him. Amrulei ima, said the mother of the Yevamot, Yeshivasa. No, she's not moving anywhere. She's not doing any yibam. Yeshivasa zu amidasan. So Amallah Yadasle. So Rabbi Barabba said, you know something? In other words, do you know something that you don't want to go through the Yibum? So Amallah in. She sees that what? You have some money. He wants to eat up her money. In other words, he wants to marry her, take her money, and divorce her. So therefore, we don't want any part of this. So Amallah, so said Rabbi Barabba to the girl, you're not fine with this? I don't want him at all. So Amalei chalitzlach. So he told the guy, listen, you do chalitza, and what? And that's the way you'll marry her. Because again, this guy wants to marry her. He doesn't want to do chalitza. He wants the money. The boss of the chalitzla, after he did chalitza, Amalei said the following: Hashtami noch ifslola. Now that you did chalitza, she's puzzled to you. Go ahead and give a good chalitza in order to. Now we said this chalitza. This is not really good chalitza, correct? Because we said it's not. You need right kavana, unless he doesn't know like Rabbi Yochanan. But the bottom line is he told the guy, this is going to passel you, and therefore go ahead and mata her. Go give a real chalitza to mata to the shuk. You're not getting the cash. You're not getting the cash.
Why would he do that?
What?
Why would he hold out for the money?
What?
Why?
Again, once you can't marry her, we're not dealing with the Russia. You want to marry her for the money, correct? Once she's off limits and you can't get the money, so why would he not want to be mated to the shuk? We're not, again, we're not dealing with Rishai and Pashtus. We're dealing, when it comes to Geld, it's under Welt, That's what we're dealing. We're dealing with normal people. Says the Gemara. Bas Chamua de Rav Papa, the daughter of the father-in-law of Papa. Basically, it was his wife's sister. It's his sister-in-law. Nafla Yavam. So Rav Papa's sister-in-law fell in front of a Yavam. Shein Hagen-law. That was not what proper for her. Asla Kamei Abaya. So they came in front of Abaya. Amalei Chalatzla ubikachat the kainsa. So Abaya said to her, listen, do chalitza, and this is how you'll marry. So Amalei Papa like Sabala Mal Hadam Rabbi Yochanan. You don't hold like Rabbi Yochanan says you need kavana. So this is not going to free her. Ella Hechi Amalei. So Abaya said, so what should I do? Amalei. So Papa told Abaya Chalatzla Menashetin Chabatayim Sus. Go ahead, give chalitza. Al manas that you're going to give 200 sus. So the boss of the chalitzla, after he gave chalitza, Amallah Abaya told her, Zil Havle, go give the money. So only her papa, Mashatani Bach. It was a joke of the late. Miloy Tanya Harishoya Boyreach Mi Besasurim. Guy's on the lam. He breaks out of prison, right? And he's got a ferry boat in front of him. He's what's the call on the lam? He's on the lamb. He's running on the lamb, right? And he's got a boat, and he's got to cross the river, and he doesn't have too much money. And so, tul dinar of everyone. He take a dinar and take me across the river. He says, yeah, here's $10,000. Take me across the river for a 50-cent ride. So all he has is the schar, is the 50 cents. He doesn't have the 10,000. Alma, what do you see? I was joking with you. In other words, if there's extenuating circumstances where you can go say, I'm just fooling you, over here, so I was also joking with you when I said I'm going to give you 200 sus. So basically, Rav Papa outdid Abaya in two ways, right? One, by telling him that your idea of the chalitza and almanas coins is not correct, based on the teachings of Yochanan, nor is the need to give labrias, nor is the need to give what? The 200 zuz necessary. So he bested him in two ways. So Amalei, very, very difficult Gemara to understand. Amalei, Abu Cheka, Rabbi said to her, Papa, where's your father? Amalei b'masa. Ime Cheka, where is your mother? Amalei b'masa. So what was his kavana? Well, let's see Rashi. Guys, it's important. What was his kavana? Amalei. Amalei Abaya, Lura Papa. Avu Checha, where's your father? Kloimar. Kimedumani sheyesh lecha av. It appears to me you have a father, v'eim, and a mother. Smuchim lecha, that support you, l'sapei tzarchecha, lefikach kamachadei shmaitzach. In other words, Abaya, as we all know, was raised by his nanny. And throughout Shas, guys, when Abaya says Amalei Aim, it was his nanny. Abaya was right. He was a yasam. What does Abaya stand for? What? No. I forgot. It's in Gittin. I know exactly where it's in the Gemara. Okay, whatever. Something Bach Yassid Yisraelim, something like. Okay, whatever. Abaya is an acronym for the father, that Hashem is the father of Yisraelim. So he was Yassim. So he was jealous. It seemed to be that, but you know what? I'm not supported. You're supported. Says the Gemara. What happened? So Yov who Einov is Shichvan. That Abaya looked at the father and the mother towards them, and they were both nifta. They're both nifta. So that's a very schwer idea. So there's a Yavitz over here. Listen to the words of the Yavitz. The Yavitz is in the back of the Gemaras. It says, Near Be'enai Klaimar, Aidei Sha'amu Leikach V'hoya Dava Gadol Be'enai, Shezachar Apapa Lekach. That he was zeicha to not be Mechadin in Torah. Sholta Be'ena, right? There's an ayin hara. He placed an ayin hara in the appearance. We saw the Gemara in Chagiga. Any place where the Chachamim placed their eyes, there's either misa or there's aniyas. There's poverty. Rava became impoverished because of ayin hara. Over here, In other words, Abaye didn't mean to go ahead and have the appearance of a proper die as a result, but it happened as a result of Ayin Hara and the power based on the Gemara and the Chagiga Daf Yomi base, the power of the Ayin Hara of a tzaddik, it can cause either poverty or death. So it's again, or else it's very, very short Gemara. I mean, how to explain this Gemara is very, very difficult. How to explain this Gemara? So based upon Ayin Hara, it'll based upon the Yivitz, it'll appear to be a Mahalach.
Look,
Yeah.
Rabbi Stern.
Yes.
Asher b'cha Yerucham Yason.
Asher b'cha Yerucham Yason. That's a Abaya, right? Asher b'cha Yerucham Yason, right? That's it. Thank you very much. Abaya. Asher b'cha Yerucham Yason is correct. Thank you. Tanrabanan. Chalitza mutais kshera. Chalitza mutais is kshera. Again, what's a chalitza mutais? We said if you give a chalitza on the condition that she's going to give you 200, you don't have to give the 200. That's the mutais. That's the trick. Get mutais, a get that's given on a trick with a condition puzzle. You know why? Because a get can be given out tonight. A get can be given out tonight. Once a get can be given out tonight. This is your get. I'm asking you 200 zuz. It's good, right? Chalitza, if you filled it tonight, it's a good get. If you don't fill it tonight, it's not a good get. Chalitza meushis, a chalitza that's forced, psula. Get meusha kasha, but a get that's forced is kasha. Hey chidami. Now what's this? What are you talking about? What are you talking about forced? Idam ratzani. If you say I want, I feel a chalitza nami, even chalitza as well. If you lo yamar roitzani, and if you don't say roitzani, get nami loy. So manushach says mahachi kama. You're right. Chalitza mutais lo'ilam kasha. Chalitza that's given through a trickery is always kasha. It's good chalitza. Why? Since it can be done ali day shli after the is bottled, the mice is kai. The get mutais lo'ilam pasal, and a get that's given on a condition. If you don't fulfill the condition, it can be pasal. Chalitza mu'ushis for get mu'ushis, they're in the same boat. A chalitza that's forced and gets forced, zimnin kasha, zimnin pasal. Sometimes it's kasha, sometimes it's pasal. Hadam a roitzani, hadam a roitzani. Depends if he says what roitza ani or not. It depends if he says the lashon of I want. So there's a pasuk by the carbon oila. It's right in the beginning of Vayikra. Im oila carbonoi, if he brings the carbon oila min abaka isacha tamim yakribenu, which should be unblemished male. Al pesach ol moed yakriv oso l'ritzono l'fnei Hashem. The lashon of yakriv oso afilu bal karchel. You can force him to being a carbon. If a person makes a neder to being a carbon, you can force him to being a carbon. And so this is a very, 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 very famous, the idea of forcing a person to do something, and that's considered beratzon. But it apparently will be what? A contradiction. The guy doesn't want to do it. You're forcing him to do it. So, and then you say, well, that forcing is considered doing it. So there's a very, very famous Rambam. It's on your phone now. I sent it out on your phone. Let me get it up here on the screen. I don't want this. If you have your phone, you'll have it on your phone. Okay. If you have your phone, you'll have it on your phone. The lashon of Rambam is Misha Hayunoisin Shekayfei Soligarishas Ishta. Someone who was forced to divorce his wife, Leirotz someone divorce his wife. Bezdin Shal Yisrael B'chol Mokim B'chol Zman. Makana said they can hit him at Shiyom Roitzani. If I get, we'll get kosher. It's good get. Even a guy would hit him. Do what the Jews tell you to do. You garish is a kosher. Get puzzle. The lom is there bottle get honest. Why is this get what bottle? To honest Spain bein akim and Israel. She no honest. We only say an honest is someone who's what who doesn't want to do something that's mechuyev min haTorah. It's not mechuyev. Keep going. Misha hukrat shemaychev. If someone hits you until you sell a property, ayat shenas until you give him a gift, then we say the force is not a force because no mitzvah to give him a gift. There's no mitzvah to give a property. Avamisha talk for yitzroi hara levatel mitzvah. Someone who has a yitzroi hara to mevatel a mitzvah, such as divorcing a wife, or lasses avera to do an avera for hookah, and he gets hit at she'asa dava shechai lasoisai until he does something that he's chayiv to do. Or at shenisrachik midava asa lasoisai until he distances himself from something he should not do. Ein ze oines mimenu elahu oines atzmei b'dasara. He himself is forcing himself from his beard. You're going away from your beard raw. You beard machshava. The fikach zeh shein roitzel legarish. This person doesn't want to divorce his wife. Since he wants to be part of the Jewish people, and he wants to do all the mitzvahs, it's his Yetzirah that goes ahead and taking hold of him. Until you hit him, until you weaken his Yetzirah, that's considered Gerish B'Tzaina. It's a Rambam in Beis from Gerish in Halacha Chaf. It's one of the most well-known Rambams in the Yad HaChazaka. In other words, you be'emes want to go ahead and divorce your wife. It's the Yetzirah is telling you not to. So therefore, when you hit the guy, what are you doing? You're hitting until you get rid of the Yetzirah. It's a fabulous Rambam to explain the base nature of people. That's and. Amarav Schayra Amarav Huna Cholzin Afbi Shem Akirin. Bezdin can go ahead and do chalitza, even though they don't recognize the yavam or the yavama. Memanin, they can do mian. Afapi Shem Akirin, even they don't recognize the yavam or the yavama. Lefikach, therefore, in Kaisvin get chalitza. The get chalitza is just it doesn't go ahead and facilitate the chalitza. Chalitza is only taking off the shoe. By a get, gerishin, then it's the get that is chorus bein olavina. Mashenke by chalitza, it's a receipt that shows that you're chalutza. Something that she can prove that she's a chalutza. So then the people the Eidim who sign on it, since Bezdin doesn't recognize it, you need the Eidim to recognize to make sure that they are who they say they are, and they can come to another court and when there was no chalitza and there was. Elim Kain Makirin. Then Kaisen get me on Elim Kain Makirin. The Chashin and Lebesn Tayin. The Chayish Lebesn will make a mistake. The Rav Didei Rav himself says this was Rav name of Schayr and then Rafuna. This is Rav himself. Ein Cholz and Elim Kain Makirin and Bezdin. Everything depends upon Bezdin. If Bezdin will not do a chalitza unless they recognize both people, they won't do a mi on Elim Kain Makirin. The Fikach Kaisen get chalitza. They write to get chalitza. After Mishay Makirin, even if they don't recognize it, the person get me and after Mishay Makirin, because we're not chayish for the Eidim, we don't care about the Eidim. It's right, it's the Bezdin. And since Bezdin recognize it, you're not worried about chayish on the Bezdin Chayim. Not chayish for Bezdin Chayim, making a mistake. Okay, home front, we'll finish the Perek Ves Hashem. Very nice Perek. And this is the mitzvah of Chalitza. This is exactly how what Chalitza takes place. Now, this is this. Okay, this is good. This is good. You need this pasuk. This is very good. Okay, so the pasuk says, "V'im lo yachbot ish lakachas es yivimtoi." If he doesn't want to take the yivama, but also yivimtoi hashara, the yivama takes her up to the hashara. We said that's a specific place that they go ahead and designate. V'omru and she says, she says. Me'ein yivami lahakim. She says, my yavam does not want to go ahead. Lahakim achim shem Yisrael loyava yavmi. He does not want to be yavmi. The keys were loyava yavmi. The korle zikne iroi. The dibru elov. They call him. They subpoena him himself, not to they shliach. The dibru elov, and they speak to him in Eitzah. Whether it's this is just going over Pias Gemaris, that whether the dibru elov, if it's appropriate, like we said, it's a proper shidduch. And then he says, Loi chafatzti, I don't want lakachta. Loi chafatzti lakachta, I don't want to take her. That's what he says. Then v'nikshi yivimta le'elav ashara, she takes off the shoe, she spits, and then she says, Kochi yasli shashalet asa yivnes beis Hashem. So she talks, takes off the shoe, spits, then Kochi yasa. We'll see who says that. Okay, that's the protocol. That's the protocol that we're saying over here. That's the protocol based upon the Psukim. Right? When she shows up in Besdin, she says she doesn't want to do it. Mitzvah chalitza, boy who v'yavimtoi lebesdin, he comes with his Yevamot to Besdin, v'yemasin le'etzah again and Besdin gives him an etzah. Shenemar, the korle zikne iroi v'dibru love. V'dibru love is what they give you advice. V'yoimeres, and she says me'en Yevami lahakim la'achim shem Yisrael. That's what she says. Lo'avo yavmi. V'hu oimer lo'i chafatzi l'kachta. U'b'lashon kodesh oyam. The Dafka said of b'lashon kodesh. V'niksha yevimta love le'eni asakena. V'cholz nolam yaragla. She takes off a shoe. V'yarka b'fanav. She spits in front of him. Roik hanir l'dayanim. Roik that can be seen by the dayanim. V'ansav amra kocha yasalishte. And she says this is done to the person. Ashal yivnes beis achiv ad kan hoyim makrin. That until then they would go ahead and read. In other words, they would read to ensure that the Yavam and the Yavam would know what to say. He would say, and he's called Shema Yisrael based Cholat Sanal. Okay, they would say that. Mitzvah Dayanim, like Mitzvah Talmidim. The Dayanim would say based Cholat Sanal and not the Talmidim. If you don't mitzvah Kol Oimdim Shom Loimah Cholat Sanal, it's a mitzvah and everyone there to say Cholat Sanal. So I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Mitzvah chalitza kaira. She says me'en Yevami. The kaira he reads right lechafatzti. The chaletzes the chalitza v'kakis she spits, takes off the shoe and spits. The kaira and then she says kachi yasalish. Says my kamashma. Might as well Yehuda telling me mastisani. That's exactly what is stated in the Mishnah. I don't need the Moira telling me exactly what is stated in the Mishnah. It says kamashma. This is the chiddush mitzvah hachi. It's a mitzvah to do this order. And if you go ahead and switch it around, less lanba. It's mitzvah bekach, guys. But what? If you switch it around, okay, it's not ma'akiv. We saw earlier, right? If it's out of order, if you spit and then you go ahead and do the chalitza, it's still kosher. Tanya nami hachi. Bein shehigdim chalitza l'rekika. This is what we saw earlier. Whether you went ahead and were magdim chalitza l'rekika, which is what you're supposed to do. Bein shehigdim l'rekika l'chalitza, which is what you're not supposed to do. Masha asa, what you did, and she is a chalutza. Amar Rabbi. Haiman de Makri get chalitza, the person who's reading the this doesn't mean the get, this means the dialogue chalitza. Loy likre lidida, loy lechude. Should not say the word loy lechude. In other words, when you're reading, don't say the word lo lechuda. Don't say the word lo lechuda. Don't stop by law, because if you stop by law, then you'll come say avayavmi. It'll come to say avayavmi. I want to do yibum. It's going to appear as you say avayavmi as I want to do yibum. So don't read loy lechude v'avayavmi lechude. The mashma loy. I don't want to not do chalitza, but avayavmi. I want to do yibum. Ella read it together loy avayavmi. Loy likri lididei. Don't read to him loy lechude. Right? Loy chafatzti. Don't loy. They say why the mashma chafatzti. I want to do yibum. So the chudei the mashma chafatzi lekachta. I want to take a loy chafatzi lekachta. Rabbi mavsuki milsahi mavsuki milsa less than. It's nothing to worry about. Mavsik, go ahead. Vashi Ashkel Rav Kahana the mitztayer. Vashi was found Rav Kahana that he was being mitztayer. He was in pain. I don't know why, but he was, I guess, he was old or whatever. Umakrila, and he read le'avayavmi. Samalei le'savala ma'lahad the Rava. You know, that Rava said that it's not you could be mafsik by the loy. This one is moide by Layavayami, he'd be moide by. Rabbi says Abaya, hi man, this person, the cost of Gita the Chalitza, the person who writes the get Chalitza, you're writing the get Chalitza, you know, this is you're writing that they should be able to read it. Lichtov Hachi, Akrinu Ledida, I read to him min me'en Yevami at avayavmi, from me'en Yevami at Yevami. Day, and I read to her that, and she read that. Min loy ad lekachta, min kochav ad chalitz. I read to each one what was appropriate. Al chalitz nar. Masucha misarte. Masucha, he would go ahead and do sirtut because of the kuli parsha. So if you look at Rashi, Rashi is bothered by what are we speaking about over here? What do you mean you read each one? So look at Rashi. Rashi fills in the blanks, guys. Here says Rashi, since the get, meaning the in order to write psukim, you have to have sirtut. You have to have lines. The lines on the cloth. And if you don't have lines on the cloth, you can't write more than 3 words. Like boy lemich the kuli pasuk. You can't write the whole pasuk. The kaimlon and kaisim dalet tevas 4. You can't write 4 letters. below sirtut, without sirtut. So they would write, if you look at he only wrote 3 letters, right? What did he say? He wrote to her, Leova Yabmi, and then he wrote to him, and Yevamot. He wrote 3 and not 4. But Masutra was Misarte, he wrote the sirtut, and get Chalitza v'Kasav l'Kula Parshasa, and then therefore Akrinu Yada Man Yevamot, then he would read the whole thing. In other words, once it was written out, he read the whole thing. Instead of breaking it up 3 words, that it should not have a problem of writing a whole Megillah. So how can you write it out? The halacha is like Masutra. This is not the reason why we don't write. We had the more in Gittin, fellas, that you don't write to Tinoikas L'Islam, and you don't write to different parshias to teach a kid, because the Torah was given all at once. It wasn't given piecemeal. But over here, this is just Gili Mil Sadalim. It's like Parsha of Saita that he used to write in the base of Mikdash. It was the Parsha. I'm going to buy it. Rokik, if she spat, the Kol Tasai Haruach, L'Yasav L'Klum. In other words, the spit has to be in front of him. So let's say she spit, and before the spit came in front of him, the wind took it away. L'Yasav L'Klum. My timer, the Yarka B'Pon of Benin. You need Yarka B'Pon in front of him, and therefore you don't have it. Hilkach Hu Aruch, if he is tall, if he Gutza and she is short, Kol Tasai Haruach, it could be fun of. If it's the fun of, why? Because she's in front of him. He arucha, but if she's tall, fu goitz, and he's short, in other words, if he's tall and she's short, she does it, it's in front of him. But if it's opposite, it's going to go over his head. So therefore, you have to wait till it comes down. Amarava, achlu tuma, if you eat garlic, the roksa, and as a result of eating garlic, you're going to expectorate, you'll spit. Achla gargishta, if you eat a piece of clod of earth, the roksa, and you spit it out, in other words, the eureka, as we're going to see, has to be natural, not as a stimulated by something. My timer, the yorka me atzma beinin, you need yorak that comes by itself, fileka, because over here you're spitting only because you want to spit out the garlic or the clod of earth. Why? That's not stimulating it.
Right, so that was okay.
That's okay. That's natural. The dayan has to see kinafim pum the Yevamot as it comes out the mouth of the Yevamot. Ichsiv le'enei has a kain v'yarka. V'nikra shmar Yisrael b'schal sanal mitzvah b'yon v'lev talmidim. Tanya Rav Yehuda pamachas hayinu yoshim with Rav Tarfin ube'abasi Yevamot lachlitz v'amalanu anu kulchem choletz sanal choletz sanal choletz sanal. They talk say it 3 times. They talk about chalitza. Every surah chalitza they say it 2 times. Choletz sanal choletz sanal choletz sanal. Hajlach mitzvah chalitza. Hajlach mitzvah chalitza. Okay. I think we'd say a Kaddish, right? And I even Kaddish.